to
Supposedly.
I'm Jessi.
And I'm Rue. And Jessi has this look on her face that tells me she has a lot to talk about.
Oh my God, you have no idea. I'm so excited.
All right.
But I know you guys are here for the stories, so stick around for those. But I have Christy here because I got my 23andMe results back and I haven't looked at them. So I wanted to do with both of you because Christy was helping me with that. But I didn't want to miss out on doing it with the podcast.
Nice.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm huge into genealogy, but I don't know anything about my father's side. I've never met my father. I don't know much about him. My mom's stories are all very confusing about it. So I did 23andMe to try to find out, one, kind of where I come from, and two, health risks associated with that side that maybe I don't know. And three, I'm kind of curious to see if there are relatives out there.
Yeah.
In the dream scenario, I don't know that I actually want to meet anybody. If I do find anyone, I would just like to know about it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Very cool.
Should we open it up? I just got the notification right at 12:30 before we
started the call. I want to see it.
I haven't looked at it yet.
I'm really excited to see the results. And hi, by the way.
Hi.
Okay. So Christy's going to help me navigate this as I am new to this program. How do I do it?
I'm so excited you did it. I always want to do that just to see kind of what's going on with myself.
Yay, I'm so excited. You have no idea.
So cool.
Okay, so I am 99.6% European. What a surprise there.
Who'd have thunk?
Being extremely fair-haired, fair-eyed, fair skin.
Yeah. Let's see what the breakdown is. This is really
how
cool.
do you do the breakdown?
It's right here. So Northwestern European, you're 94.2%. They're going to break it down further here.
Okay.
You're British and Irish, 46.4% British and Irish.
Whoa.
Wow.
Okay, I had no idea.
Look at this.
I mean, so my story from my mom's side has always been, we're French and German, right?
Okay.
And then I did genealogy research, and it was crazy because we were so French and German. It's like a French would marry a German, and then another.
But look, right below it, it does show French and German.
Yeah.
You're 37.1%.
Interesting. So my father's side must be mostly British and Irish.
Yeah.
Broadly Northwestern European, you're 10%.
Okay, so what does that mean?
No idea.
So what is Northwestern European?
Like Northwestern, so like Eastern European, you're moving in towards like Poland and that kind of stuff. So
really,
Western, I think, would be like your France and British.
I can click on it, and it's helping me more. So Northwestern Europeans are represented by people from as far as west as Ireland, and as far as north as Norway, or as far as east as Finland, and both as south as France.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's a lot of areas.
That's a lot of areas. I'm curious how bad at geography I just was. I'm like, oh God, did I just make a fool of myself? I was like, I live in Europe. I should know better.
I was very quiet. I have no idea.
Okay, Eastern European. Oh, it's doing a thing. I don't know if I get to see a map or what. This is going to be a long episode today because you and I both are doing long stories, and this is happening. I'm so fucking excited.
Yeah.
Okay, Eastern European. I am 5.4% Eastern European.
Okay.
Oh, you get into like
Russia, Soviet Russia,
huh.
Eastern Europe.
This is really cool.
Oh, I can't wait to read about all of this.
That's
because you can go even further and see the areas.
Let's scroll down and see what's next.
What's next? Trace ancestry. I am 0.3% Native American.
Okay.
Which is interesting because I heard my mom did say on my father's side I was supposedly a tiny bit a Native American. Okay. But I always thought, when most people say that, they really just want a stronger tie to the U.S. and things like that. So I wasn't expecting that to actually pop up.
Huh.
So what kind of a Native American am I? Does it tell me that?
When I did mine, I found out I was 1% sub-Saharan.
Really?
Yeah.
Tracing it all the way back. Going back to the OG folk.
Right? Riva American? Genetic landscape of the Americas was dramatically altered over the past 500 years following waves of indigenous peoples. Interesting. I really want to know what type of Native American I am, even though I'm like 0.3. What is unassigned?
I don't know. I think that's like a catch-all. They're like, we don't know what this is. I don't know. Alien?
Yeah.
no idea.
I'm 0.1% alien.
I have like 0.3% undefined or unassigned.
Well, that makes sense. You're very much more alien than me.
I want to
Very
see
true.
about relatives, girl.
Okay, we'll get there. I'm still enjoying this part of it. Okay, so I want to see if I'm Irish, because it did say I'm 96.6%. Okay, so I'm 46.4% British and Irish. I do have green eyes. I've been told my father was a redhead.
Okay.
Not that, that necessarily matters in form
Right.
of Irish, but I assumed there would probably be some Irish in there since British and Ireland. But I am surprised by that to a degree. Oh, okay. So where's this?
That's showing Ireland. So you're like Southern Ireland is where the dark blue. So it gives you a map of Ireland, and it goes from light blue to dark blue.
Oh,
And the more
this is the United Kingdom.
you are from a specific region, it gets darker. That is very cool. Oh, that is Belgium.
This is the United Kingdom. So
I'm getting down there by Belgium. Yeah.
So I'm more Belgium. And what's this? These are pretty strong.
It's not a complete defined map, so you'd have to like actually open.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, it's down below.
Oh,
of
okay.
course.
Okay, so the most highly matched. Greater London.
Huh.
Hey.
Okay.
Manchester.
Cool.
Merseyside.
All right.
Glasgow City. Tyne and Wear. West Midlands. West Yorkshire. Lancashire.
Lancashire.
Yes.
Lancashire.
Belfast.
Okay.
And South Yorkshire.
So that was in order, the number 1 being the most and the last 10 being the least.
And then, here's my Irish. Okay. Dublin.
Okay. That makes
Cork,
sense.
Kerry, County Clare, County Donegal, County Mayo, County Galloway, County Wexford, County Laos, County Tipperary.
That's really interesting.
That is so interesting. Very cool.
Huh. That's super. Yeah, I'm looking at the map to like compare.
I have some Boudica in me. Okay.
I'm
gonna dive into this for hours later today.
For sure.
Well, I guess we'll go to. How do we go to?
View all your relatives.
All right.
Oh, are you ready for this?
I don't know. I need a moment. All right, click it. It's very possible I could have half siblings I don't know about.
Yeah.
You have a first cousin that popped up once removed. Well, we probably shouldn't share names.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so first cousin once removed. Let's see if I know this dude somehow. Born in 1947.
Okay.
It also shows you the last time they were active on this site, which is cool, and it shows that he was on it recently.
So he shares the same great grandparents as me.
Okay.
But we don't know if it's on my.
Oh no, he shares your grandparents.
Oh, he shares my grandparents with me. So if he shares my grandparents with me, no, I think it's the red one.
No, it's the orange one. Look,
Orange one?
it says right here.
Okay.
Because he's
So
your first
if
cousin.
he shares my grandparents with me, I don't know if he's my mom or my dad's side. Huh. Interesting.
That's pretty cool.
I know, isn't that crazy?
I have a lot of second cousins. No direct people popped up.
Not yet. I mean, the first cousin's pretty darn close. We found a first cousin on mine. I'm adopted, so I don't know anything about my birth parents.
Right.
And I found a first cousin, which led us into Facebook world, and we think we might have found my family. Not sure yet, but it's really exciting. So
I'm like 95% sure we found her family.
That's cool.
Basically what I did is I went into Facebook and I stalked her first cousin. I saw if he had any family members listed. I stalked their Facebook page, saw if they had family members listed, and so on and so forth. And then I would search by the last name that was shared by her first cousin. And eventually I started getting into people that looked so much like Christy.
Oh, that's weird. Were they all aliens? No,
0.3%.
Right.
It was the ship.
It was the ship. It was really
But we found the mother lode.
You know how someone will say to you, oh, you look like so-and-so, and you're like, yeah, I don't see it. Looking at these photos, like
you saw it.
Jessi saw the look on my face. I was staring at my eyes. I was staring at my chin. I was staring at my nose, and even the way I smiled, this relative smile, it was so crazy. And then Jessi, you'll notice too, now that you're on there, you'll get updates. They'll find more relatives. So right now it's still gathering information. So you'll see more relatives pop up. So it's really interesting to be able to do this journey with Jessi.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of on the same page that we don't, you don't know who your biological father is. I don't know either side of mine. So it's been a really interesting journey thus far, and to see Jessi step into it.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
I'm really excited.
Scary.
I'm Irish and Native American. I mean,
That's
I knew
cool.
that there was not going to be any other race than white coming at this point. I mean, if you see me, I'm basically translucent. I could use liquid paper as concealer. So.
Okay, hold on, you guys.
Surprised.
It's on sale 50% off on Amazon right now for Black Friday.
Which one? 23andMe?
Yeah, I kind of want to do it.
Do it!
Oh my God, do it!
Yeah.
Do it.
It's really cool.
That is cool. Really yeah, I'm like, I have major envy right now. I'm gonna have to look into getting that.
You have to do it. I would love to hear what
yeah, because I'm in a similar situation where my biological mom, she died when I was really young. And by that point, my grandmother already had Alzheimer's and was convinced that she lived a life that I don't think she lived.
Okay.
I think that we're somewhat indigenous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But as my grandmother's mind kind of started to go, she had fabricated that like they lived on the res and had buffalo in the backyard. And I was like, Grandma, that's not real. Your father was a train conductor. And she was like, no, he was the chief. And I was like, no, he was a train conductor. Like, I know this. You can't lie to me. She's like, no, he was the chief. Yeah, so I would be really curious because I don't know a lot of that because everyone is dead. So I'm like, between like her memory going and then kind of not really talking to a lot of those folk because they're racist and terrible. I would love to have some of those answers because like you, I have we're this and that and
But like who really
but all
knows?
of that is hearsay and right. So that would be really cool.
Well, thanks guys for letting me jump in and be a part of this. It's really exciting.
Before you go, just because Rue told her story about her grandma thinking that she was on the reservation.
Yeah.
Would you mind telling your one about your grandma and the Titanic?
Oh, sure. Okay. This is really cool. So, my father's mother, she,
her adopted father's mother.
Yeah. She, unfortunately died of Alzheimer's and, she went down pretty slowly. I remember she lived in a retirement community and she had to move from her condo into the nursing home.
Gotcha.
And, she kept trying to escape. So they had to put a bracelet on her wrist that would give them a signal if she left the building.
Yeah.
And at that point, she, was not very coherent. And she thought that this bracelet was given to her by someone on the Titanic and that she was on the Titanic and she was waiting to reach port into America. Well,
but why did she think that?
Exactly. I asked my dad was telling me about this, and so I asked, well, why would she choose the Titanic? Yeah. Well, when she was a little girl, she and her sister and her parents had tickets to get on the Titanic to America, or I believe that's where they were headed.
Whoa.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I'm like, wait a minute, I know this history. Anyway, well, her sister, my great aunt, got sick, very ill, and so they weren't able to go. So they decided to postpone their trip.
Wow.
So they never got on the Titanic, but they had these tickets. So for whatever reason, she really thought she was on the Titanic, and that was
that's
and
wild.
Christy's parents still have the original ticket.
Oh, that's cool. That's super cool. Well, and that's just one of those things that, I'm sure at the time that they were heartbroken that their kid got sick and they're like, now we can't go. And that ruins all of our plans. That it's the same as you hear those interviews of the guy who drew the short stick and it was his turn to get coffee and donuts on 9/11. And, that one inconvenience that you're like, I'm going to be late and now I don't get to go to America on the Titanic turned out to be the one thing that completely
I know.
Yeah.
Can you imagine then seeing what happened, like reading the headlines?
Oh, the weird survivor's guilt.
Oh my gosh, right? Like,
yeah.
I can't even imagine, but it does make you wonder now. Anytime something doesn't go your way, you step back and go, well, maybe there's a bigger purpose. It makes you a little more thankful when things don't go your way or a little less upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, and like my thing too is especially given the tint of our podcast, like I wasn't aware of how old your grandmother was, but I always wonder if that's like past lives maybe peeking through as you know, the veil thins a little bit as we get closer to the end of our lives, or you know, like Alzheimer's kind of takes away some of your current memories, that when you get these bizarre narratives that don't fit in, is that some kind of, I don't know. That would just be something interesting to look into.
I will say
that is interesting.
On the Alzheimer and dementia note, 23andMe does do a great genetic workup to tell you if you're genetically predispositioned to both of those. So I know we all kind of have a history in our family lines of dementia. I know I certainly do on my mom's side. You said that you did with your grandma. Christy, you're adopted, so you might opt out of that. But
it'd be interesting to know, because it is something that happens to so many people. Just like the breast cancer markers and things like that. So even if you're not looking for long lost relatives, which you know, in all of our cases we sort of are, we're kind of curious to see where we come from. It's really great to at least have the medical background.
I promise this isn't an ad for 23andMe.
It really isn't.
We're not sponsored by it, but
if you'd like to.
It is 50% off right now if you want to check that out. I think Christy and I might try to do the Ancestry.com one as well, just to get a more thorough, in-depth look at genetic regions and historical events and so on and so forth. But yeah, you should do it, Rue. Buy it right now.
All right.
On that happy note, I am going to step out, ladies. It was so good to see you.
Thanks for coming.
You. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for hanging out.
Absolutely. You guys have a wonderful podcast. Have a wonderful episode.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.
But yeah, no, I really might get that. That'd be dope.
You should. I want to go through it all, but I am so surprised. Like, I figured maybe there'd be a little bit of Celtic, but I did not expect that degree.
I would be interested to. I'm probably hella German. That's all I gotta say. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm hella German, but living here, I'm like, oh, I look like all of these people.
You look German.
Yeah, I'm very tall. I'm broad. I got a big ass forehead. Like, it's just.
I have to look back at my German side too, because apparently I too am very German, which I expected. I just didn't expect that much Celtic. I mean, that's surprising to me. All British and Celtic.
That's why you're so small, because you are literally a fairy. You are just a Celtic fairy.
Maybe that's why
Christy's an alien. You're a fairy. That's why you like snacks. It all checks out.
Yeah, it kind of does. We got to find out what you are.
Yeah, I am Mothman.
You are Mothman.
Yep. It'll be 89% Mothman, 11% German.
Love it.
Yep.
I want to see those results. Well, I got 0.1, nobody knows. So I'm going to say that's the fairy.
There you go.
Oh, I wonder if they can tell me my blood type.
Oh, yeah. I don't know mine either.
So one of my bosses, he saw an episode of Ancient Aliens where they talked about how redheads with fair skin and blue eyes are Rh negative, and how the Rh negative factor in blood all traces back to one ancestor that was Rh negative, and therefore is kind of like alien DNA. So he gave me crap about being an alien for like months, until the point I went out and bought a blood test to be like, am I Rh negative? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I did it, and I think I'm not, but I also screwed it up, so who knows?
Oh, yeah. No,
I feel like I didn't do a good job at it.
Well, and I was reading a mystery crime book. And of course it's, the husband did it kind of thing, is where everyone's brain goes, and they're interrogating him, and they're like, what's your wife's blood type? And he's like, I don't know. And they were like so put off that was so weird. They're like, what do you mean you don't know your wife's blood type? And I was like, I don't know my own blood type. I certainly don't know my husband's blood type. I don't know my mom's blood type. I don't know anybody's blood type.
I will say, couple questions about that.
Yeah.
What year did the novel take place in? Modern day?
It was Gone Girl. It was like 2000 something.
Okay, did they have a child in that?
No.
Okay, so then he wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Like, if you go through a pregnancy with your wife, it's probably something that's brought up at some point that you might absorb, but
like, the fact that they were so put off, they're like, oh, this guy's a schmuck, right? I'd be like, oh man, they would definitely think I killed my husband, because I'd be like, K, and they'd be like, ma'am, that's not even a blood type.
That's not a blood type.
Well, I don't know.
Take her in.
Yep.
Wait, but Scoop's in the military, so you can just check out his dog tag. That's your homework, is just to learn your husband's blood type to absolve you of any future murders, just in case.
All right, and learn my own and then tell him to absolve him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, so you being a fairy aside, I think you go first this week.
Well, that actually works great for me because I'm doing something alien related, and we just discussed alien blood types. So
we really are going to find your family this week.
Yeah, this week on Supposedly, we deep dive into Jessi's family situation, and we talk about aliens.
Sweet.
Hooray. So today, I am going to talk about the Barney and Betty Hill abduction.
Ooh.
And then we're going to get into gray aliens a little bit. Originally, I was going to do different types of aliens, but this one took so much time and effort and comes with a great story that I thought maybe I'm not going to have time for the rest. So we'll have to look for that another day.
Right on.
All right, let me take you back. The year is 1961. Do your rewindy sound.
Bloop, 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 bloop.
It's September. So
Do
there's
you
a mix.
remember? I'm sorry.
No, give it to me.
The 21st night, September.
Wasn't on the 21st, but remember September anyway. All right. Mixed race couple, Barney and Betty Hill, are kind of driving along.
Okay.
So Barney used to work kind of a tedious night shift at the post office, in which he drove 60 miles in both directions, while Betty handled state child welfare cases. What was that?
I don't hear anything.
Oh, how do you not hear that?
It's the ship coming to take you home.
Well, I'm right here. Come get me.
Come get me.
2020 was a bad year. 2021 can't be any better. Take me now. So Betty handled state child welfare cases. I assume she was a social worker based on that. Their free time was mostly spent going to church and helping with civil rights movement at the time.
I would assume so, being an interracial couple at 61,
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they were married for 16 months at the time they decided to take a trip through Montreal and Niagara Falls. It was kind of going to be like their delayed honeymoon because they didn't really get to take a honeymoon. And it was a spontaneous trip in which they decided to take it right before they left. And so they were even unable to get to the bank before it closed that weekend. Gotcha. And they have about $70 in cash at the time of the encounter.
Okay.
It's about the third night, which is the last night of their 3-day trip. They're exhausted from driving, and they decide to stop off at this diner in Vermont to refuel with coffee for the long drive ahead. Barney wants them to push through at this point because there were rains and winds coming from an approaching hurricane, and he didn't want to be driving in that all night.
Yeah.
So they refuel with coffee, and they leave the diner around somewhere between 10 p.m.-ish. They decide that, if they leave then, they can probably get home to Portsmouth, New Hampshire between 2 and 3 p.m. So they're driving along, and they see this strange light in the sky. They described it at the time as like a falling star, and Betty starts to get really worried. But Barney, being a World War II vet, tries to reassure her that nothing's out of the ordinary and there's nothing to worry about. He thinks that it's probably just a satellite that went off course and that it's not very dangerous to them. But they're worried about this because as they're driving these curvy mountain roads, the light seems to be following them and moving with the car. It's zigging, it's zagging, it's ducking past the moon, the trees, the mountains, and more. And then it would just reappear moments later. So Barney's like, okay, maybe this is a little off. Finally, they're curious enough to pull over at various different road stops to try to get a better look. At one point, Betty pulls out a pair of binoculars, being as how you had binoculars in the 1960s, just hanging around if you're going on a trip. And she sees that this light is actually an object spinning in the air.
Okay.
So she tells her husband, quote, Barney, if you think that's a satellite or a star, you're being completely ridiculous.
Oh, women of that era. Being completely ridiculous. And I'm sure she had this great transatlantic. Yeah. Do your Gandalf.
Barney, if you think that's a satellite or a star, you're being completely ridiculous. That's going to be her voice for this.
Beautiful.
So about 70 miles past the diner, this mysterious object is hovering right above the treetops, about 100 feet above Betty and Barney's vehicle. Barney gets fed up at this point. He's tired of this light kind of following them for such a long time. At this point, he's convinced that it's not a satellite and it's not a plane because it hasn't made any noise, and he's getting really stressed out about it.
Yeah.
Remember, this is getting to be the middle of the night.
Right.
They just stopped for coffee. They're trying to beat this hurricane.
Yeah.
I don't know why this is his go-to response, probably being an ex-vet, but he grabs a gun from beneath the seat, puts it in his pocket, and abruptly leaves the car.
This is such an American attitude.
Right, like, I'm gonna go shoot this thing, or
right.
whatever he's thinking at this point.
Well, and also, like, it sounds like they're, newlyweds, and it sounds like they don't have kids at this point. But
Nope.
that feels like such big dad energy to just be like, I'm annoyed at the UFO.
I'm gonna put this gun in my pocket and go give it 10-4, 1-4, all the fours.
10-4.
10-4, 1-4, all the fours.
10-4 aliens, over.
Find out what for. I don't know. So, shoves the gun in his pocket, and he trudges his way into the dark field where this UFO is. He describes what he sees next as a big jet that was flat as a pancake.
Okay, it's not a jet then, Barney. Jets don't look like that.
It's flat like a pancake, and he would know.
Well, I suppose.
He would know. See? And there's a drawing of this. I'm going to describe it to you now. It looks like a jet that's flat like a pancake.
Okay.
Barney and Betty make it home, but when they arrive home, there's just a feeling that something isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Barney starts checking out his lower half and making sure his body's okay. Betty has a torn dress, and she just feels like something's entirely off.
Okay.
And things just don't seem right. Betty had reported the UFO sighting on that. Wait! What's that song go? How's the song go?
Which one? Hotline Bling?
That September.
Oh, do you remember the 21st night of September?
I was wrong. It is the 21st night of September.
Is that what Earth, Wind, and Fire we're talking about? Hold on.
Wait a second.
Hold on.
So on September 21st, she does telephone Pease Air Force Base and reports the UFO encounter. So I don't think the encounter took place on the 21st, but she does report it on the 21st night of September. Are you pulling up the Earth, Wind, and Fire thing so we can get a verification on that before we proceed?
I'm working on it. So far, I found that someone in this interview is saying, we are going to change body to real words, right? Finally, when it was so obvious he was not going to, I just said, what the fuck does body mean? And he said, who the fuck cares? So I'm in love with this interview. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with the 21st. As for the opening phrase, the band tried out many other dates. We went through all dates. Do you remember the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th? And just felt the 21st was the best.
Do you remember?
Okay.
The 20th night of September. No. No, let's try 21st.
Do you remember? Night
of September. No, doesn't sound right.
And then they start looking at it. They're like, how many, is that one that has 29, 30, 31? How many days? Okay, anyways, so it was not about the aliens, but that would be super dope. Not
related to the aliens, it would be super dope. So let's just pretend Earth, Wind, and Fire was talking about aliens in that song at this point. Why would you not?
Yeah.
All right, give me that rewindy sound again. We're going to go back to when Barney's in that field with the handgun in hand, staring up at this thing. What he sees is behind rows of windows, gray uniformed beings that seem to be looking right at him. So he remembers that he tried to lift his hand to his pistol, but somehow he couldn't. He was frozen. And a voice tells him not to put down his binoculars, which is interesting because if you're frozen, you probably can't put down your binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just my weird head interpretation of it, and maybe it's like his hand, he was too shaky to go for the gun, or I don't know. So this is when he has a startling thought. He starts thinking, oh shit, we're about to be captured.
Mm-hmm.
My words, not his.
Mm-hmm. Probably his too, to be fair.
To be fair, wouldn't you? So he's yelling hysterically, and he runs back to the car, jumps in the car, and tries to barrel down the road as Betty tries to track the craft, craning her head outside the car window, and without explanation, a loud rhythmic beeps sounded from their car's trunk. Boop, 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 boop.
Okay.
Once again, my interpretation, not theirs.
Well, and also especially unnerving considering that we're in the 60s. Like, I would be like, oh, my phone's doing something weird. Is there an Amber Alert? But like in the 60s, beeps and boops are very, very alarming.
Right. So the couple feels instantly drowsy and loses consciousness.
Great.
They come around 2 hours later and 35 miles down the road.
Mm.
And this is when we get into the part about Barney checking out his lower half. Everything doesn't feel right. Betty's off a little bit. She's got a torn dress. It just seems like something is really off, and they're kind of feeling like this puzzling presence. So in the weeks and months after, Betty, who's an avid reader, starts checking out books from the library about different UFO groups, and she reports the sighting to the Air Force, being worried about the radiation that might have occurred. And on top of that, she's having some really bad dreams. So 10 days after the alleged UFO encounter, she begins having these vivid dreams that continue for 5 successful nights in a row. Never in her memory had she recalled dreams in such detail and with such intensity. But they kind of stop after about 5 nights and never return. But she thinks about them throughout the day, time in and time out, recounting what had happened in these dreams. She finally mentions them to Barney, and he's sympathetic, but he's not too concerned. And in a very 60s fashion, he wants her to drop the matter. She decides not to mention them to him again. But in November 1961, she starts writing them down in all the details that she can remember. So in one dream, she and Barney encounter a roadblock and surround their car. She loses consciousness, but struggles to regain it, and then she realizes that she's being forced by 2 small men to walk into the forest in the nighttime, and of seeing Barney walking behind her, though when she called to him, she seemed to be in a trance or sleepwalking. So the men stand about 5 feet to 5 feet 4 inches tall and wear matching blue uniforms, with caps that are described to being similar to those worn by military cadets. They appear to be nearly human, with black hair, dark eyes, prominent noses, and bluish lips. She says that their skin was a grayish color. So in these dreams, Betty, Barney, and the men walk up to a ramp into this disc-shaped craft of metallic appearance. And once inside, they're separated. She protests profusely and is told by a man called the leader that if she and Barney were examined together, it would take much longer to conduct the exams, and then they're taken to these separate quarters. She then dreamt that there's a new man similar to the others that entered to conduct the exam with the leader. Betty calls this new man the examiner when she recounts these stories, and she says that he has a pleasant, calm manner. Though the leader and examiner spoke to her in English, it seemed like the examiner's ability to speak English was a lot less imperfected, and so she had a little bit of a difficulty kind of understanding him. The examiner tells Betty that he'd conduct a few tests to try to decide the differences between humans and these beings. So he seats her on a chair, and this bright blue light is shown on her. The man cut off a lock of her hair. He examines her eyes, ears, mouth, teeth, throat, hands, and he shaves trimmings from her fingernails.
Oh, I don't know why that really doesn't sit well with me. The fingernails is too far.
Like taking the fingernails, that's where it's like, too much. They cut her hair.
That to me feels like, I don't know, I'm just more attached to my fingernails than my hair, I think.
Okay.
There's just so much more hair.
Yeah.
Like, a little chunk of hair is no big deal, but when you start taking my finger, and also, like, I can take kid scissors and snip off some hair. Like, I don't know, the fingernails is weird to me.
Well, they shaved it off, so I'm thinking like they nail filed it.
I don't love the word shave in this kind. Anyways, continue. I'll just be weirded out.
I'm sorry, I read that wrong. It's saved, not shaved. So trimmings from her fingernails. So he clipped her fingernails a little bit.
Don't love it, but sure, let's do it.
I would rather you take my fingernails than my hair.
Okay, well,
personally,
that's where we differ.
I don't have a lot of hair though. You've got a lot of hair.
I do have a lot of hair.
He even goes as far to use a dull knife to scrape some skin off of what I believe would probably be her foot. It's kind of described to that of a letter opener.
Was she having a spa day and just misremembered it? Because at this point she's getting her nails done, she's getting her hair trimmed, now she's getting a pedicure.
Yeah, he's scraping it onto cellophane, what looks like cellophane. So he decides to test her nervous system, and here's the part you're going to hate. And I hate too. If you hated the fingernail, they put a needle into her navel. Which causes her agonizing pain.
Oh no. My belly button just closed in on itself.
It said
my muscles just contracted. We're like, we can't let that happen to us. Self-preservation mode activate.
Transcontinental Gandalf jumped out of it and said, "None shall pass."
Literally.
But through her agonizing pain, the leader comes up to her and waves his hand in front of her eyes, and the pain just vanishes.
How nice.
Right. I would love that.
Yeah.
Oh, menstrual cramps? Bye-bye. Burning migraine? Nope.
Yeah.
Weird ankle injury that acts up sometimes? Vanished. Be great.
Super great.
And the examiner leaves the room. Betty starts engaging in conversation with the leader.
Mhm.
She picks up a book with rows of strange symbols that the leader said she could take home with her. She also asks from where he came from, and he pulls down this instructional map that's dotted with stars. In Betty's dream account, the men began escorting the hills from the ship when kind of a disagreement breaks out. The leader then informs Betty that unfortunately she can't keep the book, and he states that they had decided that the other men didn't want her to even remember the encounter, so having evidence of it was kind of like a no-no. Betty insisted that no matter what they did to her memory, that she would recall the events. Barney and her then taken to their car, where the leader suggests that they wait and watch the departure. They did so, then resumed the drive. And remember, this is all of her dreams, right?
Right, yeah.
Right. What do you think of that so far?
It's really compelling. I think that when we have these like abduction stories, I think they're more compelling the earlier they are. Because at this point there's so many movies, there's so much lore, it's so accessible to have a lot of like I have had scary dreams about aliens because I watched War of the Worlds that night, or Signs, or The Fourth Kind, or there's so many reasons that it's normal. But when you're having that fleshed out of a dream in 1961, when you've got H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds to compare against, I think it's a lot more compelling to have such a fleshed out idea of what happened.
There have been reports that about 2 weeks prior to their abduction, a TV show aired that they were said to have possibly watched and be fans of that featured an alien abduction very similar to their own.
Okay.
It was prevalent in pop culture and still is to this day. Let me ask you, the gray aliens, that we're talking about here, were those the ones that you had a dream about, or?
Like that I've personally dreamt about?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever had a dream about like aliens, but I think it's been more like there's a ship, we gotta go sort of. Like, I've never had like an abduction dream. I would be so freaked out if I did. It's been more like the scenario. I have a lot of scenario dreams where it's like, I know I'm in a zombie apocalypse, but I don't actually see zombies, or I know I'm in an alien situation, but I don't ever see an alien or like get beamed up. I'm just like, oh, gotta go. Like that, what was the show? I think it was on TNT that the guy from ER.
Okay.
That's not Adrian Brody, but kind of looks like Adrian Brody.
I've got no idea, but go on.
Okay. But he was in a show it wasn't so much like alien abduction, kidnapping. It was more like aliens are here, they're colonizing. We got to figure out how to still educate our school children. Like, that's more the alien dreams that I've had.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like, all right, now we live with aliens.
Well, the reason I ask is because gray aliens are actually the most popular alien in pop culture.
Mm-hmm.
So they are the most common ones that you would have dreams about or that are referenced in pop culture. And we'll get there when I talk specifically about the gray aliens, if we have time. But
yeah, them having hair thing struck me as kind of weird.
In her dreams, yes.
Yeah, because I think most of the time they're like naked, bald babies that have giant heads. That I was like envisioning almost like Spock at that point. And I was like, okay, sure.
I will say in her dreams they seem pretty nice because they one of the guys almost lets her keep a book, and he's like, oh hey, when we're leaving, why don't you watch the spaceship take off? You know, he's trying to give her a nice experience at least.
Give us a 5-star review on Yelp.
You know,
how was your abduction?
We took your hair, we took your fingernail, we made your pain go away, we gave you a book, took it back, and
your cracked heels are so soft.
Why don't you watch the ship go? It just seems like he was very considerate, so that gives me some hope there. With Betty having all these dreams all the time, she's starting to worry about her mental health. And Barney, too, begins worrying about his mental health because he starts developing an ulcer and some deep-seated anxiety. So the couple decides, well, let's go talk to somebody about this, which I gotta say for the 60s, pretty progressive at the time.
60s and a World War II vet.
Right.
And a person of color, like...
Progressive.
Yeah.
So the two meet with a man by the name of Benjamin Simon, who's a psychiatrist and a neurologist who specializes in hypnosis.
Okay.
Which was a pretty mainstream technique at the time. Have you ever been hypnotized?
Not really. I've tried self-hypnosis, but I've never gone to a hypnotist.
I once got pulled on stage at a like a hypnotist comedy show.
Yeah.
And got hypnotized. I'm kind of the belief that guy was a little fraudulent. I will say I did seem a lot calmer, but I don't know how effective my experience with it was.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is just deep relaxation techniques.
Right.
Which
That being said,
and being used in like smoking cessation is like when you relax your brain that's like, oh, I have to do dishes, and you actually can get behind that to kind of unlock the subconscious. I think that's where that works. So even if it's not good hypnosis, you're still gonna feel zenned out if he's be like deep, breathe deeply and count back from 100. Like you're gonna feel chilled out.
right. And that being said, you got to remember this is a comedy hypnotist.
Yeah.
This isn't someone who specialized in neurology and hypnosis.
Right.
This is some guy named, I forget what his name is, but let's just call him Hypnotist Bob or something.
And that's what his name was. It was Hypnotist Bob all along.
Actually, once my mom used to have to put on these events for the hospital she worked at.
Yeah.
She worked for like a conglomerate of hospitals. So what would be like, well, I could tell you, like an Advent Health or like a Health Midwest or something like that, right? And one event she had to put on every year was a dinner for the doctors, and it would come with free childcare. So she hired this magician named Magic Bob, and I probably shouldn't be outing Magic Bob here. He was the best, worst magician I've ever seen.
I love good. Is that why you have such a love of magicians? Does it all stem back to Magician Bob?
Magic Bob.
I'm sorry.
And he was so bad it was good. I wasn't attracted to him or anything, if that's what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
I just love magic. I just think it's awesome. Maybe it's the fairy in me that just likes that humans are able to do illusion-y things. I don't know.
Illusion-y things.
If we're going to go as far as to say that I'm a fairy. But I think I'd be a pixie.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, so through these weekly sessions they have, Simon starts helping them piece a couple of things together that they thought had happened.
Mm-hmm.
So the vessel had landed on the Hill's car, putting them to sleep. Afterwards, Gray Beans walked them up a long ramp into the spacecraft. And once inside, they were separated, being taken to separate examination rooms, much like Betty's dream. The rooms had curved walls and a large light hanging from the ceiling. Each was asked to climb onto a separate metal table, and the table was so short that Barney's legs hung over the side.
I don't know, that just really amuses me.
It kind of amuses me too.
Yeah, just dangling.
It's like, what do you want me to do with my legs? And they're like, we didn't really think about that.
I kind of see Will Ferrell in Elf when he's like trying to live in the North Pole, and like they give him the bed that his knees go over, and he's just got like a 90-degree bend in his leg.
You're taller than our last human. So during these examinations, the Beans removed Betty and Barney's clothing. They plucked strands of their hair, took clippings of their nails, scraped their skin. We all talked about that already. Mm-hmm. And each sample is placed on this clear cellophane-looking like material. That's not necessarily unlike the glass slides that we used at the time and even use today. Needles connected to long wires probed their heads, arms, legs, and spines.
Okay. I'm sorry that I just made a weird Pac-Man dying noise, but that's just how I feel.
Is that how you internally die? Was with the Pac-Man dying noise?
Probably.
Okay. And the needle that was inserted into Betty's navel is then believed to be a pregnancy test.
Vomitous.
Yeah. I mean, why have her pee on a stick when you could probe her with a needle?
Cool.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, not a fan.
Betty describes the leader watching from the side during her encounter. So while this is going on, the Beans discover that Barney's teeth could be removed.
Did he have dentures? Please tell me he had dentures.
He did have dentures.
Okay, because I'm like, well, technically, Jessi, everyone's teeth can be removed. It's how easily they go back in that we have a problem with. Like, you can remove my teeth. I would just really prefer if you did not.
You aren't wrong. Betty was laughing at the time because I guess these alien beings were kind of flabbergasted by this, like, oh, his teeth came out. And she explains that Barney had dentures and kind of talks him through human aging and that you can lose teeth and so on and so forth. So later, when she's alone with this leader, I'm going back to where he kind of shows her the board of the star system. These are some varying reports from different interviews too. So if you notice things are a little bit different from what I've told you, the reports vary based on what articles these have come out and as the years have gone on. But they all are very similar to a degree. She's asking where the craft has flown, admitting that she doesn't know a lot about the universe. And the leader jokes and says, if you don't know where you are, then there wouldn't be any point to me telling you where I am, which snarky.
Oh, okay.
But truth.
Well, and also, I mean, it's a big-ass universe.
Yeah, so remember how I told you that I believe it was the Examiner, who was it, that shows her this map?
Yeah, I think it was
Was it the leader or the Examiner?
I think it was the leader, because you said that the Examiner wasn't as able to communicate in English with her.
Possibly. It was the nice one.
Okay.
So when he's showing her that map, which I'm assuming maybe this is right after, so she's shown this map, and she remembers it under hypnosis and is even able to draw it.
Oh, wow.
Right, which is pretty interesting. So in 1965, this story is picked up by a Boston newspaper, and after that, everything changes for the couple. They were a relatively quiet couple before this happened, keeping rather low, as they were an interracial couple in the early 60s. That was kind of what you did, just not to draw negative attention. And the subject becomes a subject of a best-selling book and a movie even starring James Earl Jones.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, they're these celebrity abductees, which is really weird to them because Barney was not the type that wanted to draw attention, and Betty even too was quiet. So they weren't the first to spot a UFO or even report an abduction, but their story does capture the nation's imagination. It's so widely publicized that it helps to shape how we talk about alien encounters and abductions even to these days. I bet you're wondering, what kind of evidence was there?
Yeah.
I was having trouble finding the next couple things that I'm going to tell you about online, but I have listened to recounts of this story time and time again through various documentaries, through the show Alien, Ancient Aliens, and many podcasts that I listen to cover it, including, I believe, Unexplained Mysteries and That's Why We Drink, and a few others. So I have heard this multiple times from different places, but I wasn't able to track down some of this information. Yeah. Apparently, but the fact that other people have tracked it down multiple times leads to me to believe it's out there somewhere. I did kind of a brief research dive into today, because I focused on a lot of the gray aliens, too. Her dress was said to be radioactive.
And also it was torn, right?
It was torn. And samples have been taken from that dress and remain to this day for for scientific testing. The car also emitted radiation when tested. And remember that map that Betty drew under hypnosis? Well, in 1968, Marjorie Fish of Oak Harbor, Ohio, reads Fuller's Uninterrupted Journey, which talks about this encounter. She's an elementary school teacher at the time and also an amateur astronomer. She's really intrigued by the star map that Betty actually drew and appeared in the book. She decides maybe it'd be cool if she could try to decipher it to determine which star system the UFO came from. She's assuming that one of the 15 stars on the map must represent the Earth's sun. So she constructs a three-dimensional model of nearby star suns, like, stars deemed to have characteristics that could support life, such as that found on Earth. And using thread and beads, she straight up crafted this thing.
What an awesome lady.
Right? She's basing stellar distances on those published in 1969's Gliese Star Catalog.
Okay.
I could be saying that incorrectly, and she studies thousands of vantage points over several years. And the only one that matches the Hills map seems to be from the viewpoint of a double star system called Zeta Reticuli. So she sends her analysis to Webb, who immediately agrees with her conclusions. Basically, what she did is she took this drawn picture of the star map that Betty recounted from her hypnosis sessions and her dreams, and she perfectly matches it to the star system Zeta Reticuli, therefore proving that that's an actual thing, which is pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Betty then would refer to the aliens as Zeta Reticuli, and that, my friends, is the story of Barney and Betty Hill's abduction. Now we're going to talk a little bit about gray aliens.
I looked them up just because I wanted to see if there was a picture of them. They are adorable.
Aw, aren't they though?
Have you seen the picture of them with their little dachshund?
Yes.
That just cracks me up because they just look like this cute old couple, and they just have this pretty chunky little dachshund sitting in Betty's lap.
Oh, he's a chunk. He's a chunk. He's a big brown chunk.
But that is just so precious to me.
We talked a lot about gray aliens and how they're so prominent in pop culture. And according to journalist C.B.D. Bryan, 73% of all reported alien encounters in the United States are described of that being gray aliens, which is weird because it's a significantly higher portion than other countries.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Do you want to know what the portions are of other countries?
If you've got like 5 you can rattle off, that'd be cool.
Greys make up approximately 50% in Australia, 73% in the United States, as I just told you, and 48% in the continental Europe, and around 12% in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
But these reports include 2 different distinct groups of greys that often differ in height.
Do we have any information from Central or South America?
Not that I could find.
Okay, because that would be interesting to me if it was like continental differences.
Right. I do wonder. I mean, like I said, this is pretty an abbreviated version, considering I wanted to cover both greys and the main story.
Right.
That is kind of the first to be, one of the first to be connected to greys. Yeah, we don't have any information on that, or at least I don't for this, but it'd be interesting. We should try to find it at some point. I wonder if they have territories. Like the greys are like, I'll take the United States.
That's what I was saying. Yeah,
with like half of Australia.
Yeah. And
then really we could just do samples other places. And then, like, you know, the reptilians or the Nordics are like, we'll take this and that. And those are other types of aliens that I hope to cover eventually.
Yeah.
So the image of greys that we have today are described as being human-like with small bodies, smooth gray-colored skin, enlarged hairless heads, and large black eyes. They usually don't have any sex organs or any protruding features like a nose. So Barney and Betty Hill, who we talked about earlier, their accounts are one of the ones that drove on this idea of the gray alien in pop culture. And similar descriptions appear in early accounts of the 1974 Roswell UFO incident. Greys are reported there. So they're often also being reported as being diminutive and really shorter. They're jointed differently than humans, and their limbs are often said to be proportionally different than humans as well. Now, in a 1983 article, Man of the Year Million, science fiction author H.G. Wells envisions the possibility of humanity transformed into a race of gray-skinned beings who are perhaps 1 meter tall, with big heads and large oval-shaped pitch-black eyes. He has a 1901 book called The First Men in the Moon, where he describes Selenites, natives of the moon, as having gray skin, big heads, and large black eyes. It's believed that he's probably the first to introduce the greys into pop culture as we know it. And then in 1933, the Swedish novelist Gustav Sandgren, let's just call him Gustav.
Yeah, Gustav.
He uses the pen name Gabriel Lind, and he publishes a science fiction novel called Den Okanada Franan, The Unknown Danger, in which he describes a race of extraterrestrials. And he says, quote, in this book, "The creatures did not resemble any race of humans. They were shorter than the average Japanese, once again, did not age well, and their heads were big and bald, with strong square foreheads and very small noses and mouths, and weak chins. What was most extraordinary about them is that their eyes were large, dark, gleaming with sharp gaze. They wore clothes made of soft gray fabric, and their limbs seemed to be similar of that to humans." That's believed to be the next time in literature we're kind of told about that. Next thing to pop up, of course, is Roswell, followed by the Hills encounter. And then a 1990 article entitled Entirely Predisposed, Martin Kottmeyer suggests that Barney's memories revealed under hypnosis might have been influenced by an episode of the science fiction television show The Outer Limits, titled The Borello Shield, which was broadcasted, like I said, about 2 weeks before their first hypnotic session. So this episode features an extraterrestrial with large eyes who says that, quote, "In all the universes and all the unities beyond the universes, all who have eyes and have eyes that speak." Some people believe that that television show went on to fuel some of these hypnosis sessions and create the appearance of greys that we often know in pop culture today. They've popped up everywhere. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Cantina Band in Star Wars film, South Park, and so many more. Basically, the span of pop culture references go on and on and on. But what do they want? Why are they here? Abduction claims are often described as being extremely traumatic and can even be related to sexual assault or the level of trauma and distress of abuse. Research has shown that the emotional impact of perceived abductions can be as great as that of combat experience and other traumatic events. But what's really interesting is the eyes, because the eyes are often a focus of abduction claims. Claims go on to often describe greys staring into the eyes of the abductee while conducting mental procedures. This staring is claimed to induce hallucinogenic states or directly provoke different emotions. Some people even believe that they're trying to observe human emotions throughout their process to control human emotions. There are a lot of conspiracy theories that go on to talk about the Greys, but most boil down to this, that the Greys either represent a part of a government-led disinformation and plausible deniability campaign, that they're the product of government mind control experiments, or that they're just trying to learn the differences between humans and themselves. For what purpose, we don't really understand yet. But if you go back to Barney and Betty Hill's abduction, it seemed like at least there was some kindness there.
Yeah, interesting. During your whole story about the Greys, it made me think of, I recently saw this Tumblr like text post that was shared to Facebook, but it talked about the uncanny valley, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's basically like why we're so freaked out by like dolls or AI, that kind of stuff that looks human but is decidedly non-human. But it talked about how we respond to it, that like it lights up the threat parts of our brains, that when we see a creepy doll or like Sophia, the AI robot, it lights up the perceived threat part. And other animals don't have that. So if you show a monkey something that looks monkey-like, or a cat something that looks cat-like, they don't have the same threat response.
That's very interesting.
Which then like the text post, and of course like this is Tumblr, this is not science, but
right
it was basically,
we are called Supposedly, so if you're looking for 100% factual, I mean, although we try to do our best, you might need to go someplace else.
But basically it was positing what has existed throughout human history to lead to us having such an ingrained fear of things that look like us but are decidedly not us.
I wonder if that kind of goes back to Neanderthals and
that's
the
kind of
different
what was
species of evolution.
That's sort of what they brought up in that post, but it also
because
kind of
they would often fight each other.
Yeah.
And as we've covered in this podcast many times, the biggest monsters out there are human.
Yeah.
And often some that are human-like but are not what we would 100% describe as human. And when I say that, I'm talking about serial killers who have that vacant emotion that we wouldn't refer to as being human, or we've talked about the settlers, and you did a great episode last week on Pocahontas, and I mean, humans are monsters.
Oh, 100%. But no, it's just the idea of the Greys, that, I don't know, looking kind of humanoid is so upsetting to me. Like, I don't know, I love aliens, but I definitely have to like watch BoJack Horseman afterwards before I go to bed, because I like need a palate cleanser, because aliens are so freaky deaky cool to me.
What is your favorite breed of alien? Do you have one?
Not really.
Is it weird that I have one, that I know what my favorite is?
I don't really think I have a favorite. What's your favorite?
Oh, the Nordics.
Okay.
The Nordics, which are believed to be what Nordic mythology was based off of.
Yeah.
The Nordic aliens. They appear very tall. Once again, they're kind of Aryan, very blonde, very blue-eyed. But the history of them is really cool, and they seem to be very helpful to humans.
You're going to have to do an alien species deep dive one of these days.
I'll have to, but there was really only 3 I could find good information about. There's the Greys, the Reptilians, and the Nordics, and the rest are kind of, I want to say, blur the lines of cryptid and aliens.
Yeah.
So.
They're like me, 89% Mothman.
I need to find a good book that just lists them all. Once upon a time, I stumbled upon this great article. I don't know how factual it was, but it was interesting nonetheless, which were all the different breeds of aliens. And it was supposedly taken from this handbook that different government agencies used that was leaked or something like that. It was, but you never know if it was factual, but I stumbled across it and I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I just love, how I have such a love of history. And the fact that those aliens could be directly linked to, Thor and Loki, and it's just, that's very cool to me.
That's pretty cool.
So.
Well, today I also have something vaguely humanoid looking. We're talking about Slenderman today.
Ooh, I actually know a lot about this one.
Nice. So this is going to be kind of a deep dive, but here we go.
I know, we're already an hour and a half into this episode.
Fine. It's fine. It's great. It's fine. All right. On June 8th of 2009, Eric Knudsen logs onto the Something Awful internet forum under the screen name of Victor Surge and enters a Photoshop challenge asking users to create something paranormal. Knudsen uploads 2 black and white pictures of children, which he had photoshopped in a tall, thin figure in a black suit.
Okay.
Most of the other entries only contained images, but Knudsen went a step further and added captions to these posts, or to these pictures, supposedly from witnesses that detailed abductions of children. So I'm abducting people too. Abductions of children under each photo. So the first photo was, "We didn't want to go. We didn't want to kill them, but its persistent silence and outstretched arms horrified and comforted us at the same time. 1983, photographer unknown, presumed dead."
Wow. A lot of information in that one little blurb.
Right? It's a very good writing prompt,
Smart.
if nothing else. And the next one said, "One of the 2 recovered photographs from the Sterling City Library set ablaze, notable for being taken the day which 14 children vanished and for what is referred to as, quote, the Slenderman. Deformities cited by film defects by officials. Fire at library occurred 1 week later. Actual photograph confiscated as evidence. 1986, photographer Mary Thomas missing since June 13th, 1986.
He has got a way with words.
It's really, really compelling storytelling.
Yeah. And through such a minimal
Yeah.
presence of, I love it. Okay.
Yeah. So since then, Knudsen has said in interviews that he was inspired to create this character by Zach Parsons of Something Awful's That Insidious Beast, Stephen King's The Mist, Shadow People, Mothman, The Tall Man from 1979's Phantasm, Silent Hill, H.P. Lovecraft, Resident Evil, and The Mad Gasser of Mattoon. So basically, if there was a thing to be inspired by, he was like,
This
yes,
man,
a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this.
I love the artistry though.
Yeah.
Really do. Right now I'm like, I'm impressed. That's awesome to take all those elements and make something completely new in your own.
Right.
And then to describe it in such a minimal but impactful way is just storytelling at its purest. And
yeah,
I commend that.
Yeah, super, super cool. So Knudsen said that his goal in creating Slenderman was, quote, to formulate something whose motivations can barely be comprehended and which caused unease and terror in a general population.
He thought about this.
He really did. And this is all just for like an internet contest.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There are some other characters that are kind of similar to Slenderman, which already existed, such as the gentleman from Buffy, the Vampire Slayer series, the Men in Black, not the Will Smith movie, but like what they're based on.
In the comic?
No, like the actual Men in Black secret organization that doesn't exist, but totally exists. The Question, which is a DC Comics superhero with a blank face whose secret identity is Victor Sage, which we'll remember that Knudsen logs on to Something Awful's forums as Victor Surge. So maybe he kind of got some inspo from that.
All right.
Yeah. And so now we actually have a book written kind of about Slenderman. So Professor Shira Chess of the University of Georgia wrote the book Folklore, Horror Stories, and the Slenderman, the Development of an Internet Mythology. And here she connects Slenderman to ancient folklore about fairies. So you're Slenderman, sorry.
I'm still not 100% convinced I'm a fairy because I would eat fairy snacks in a heartbeat.
But that's why, is because they're your own snacks.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah. You're just eating the snacks in hopes that you get to go back to the fairy world and get to go home. You're like, Mom!
Oh, free soup!
Yeah, exactly. Free.
I was a changeling who just desperately wants to get back. Actually, that would describe a lot about my birth story. Okay, go on.
I want to write that book now. That would be such a good book.
You should.
Don't steal my idea, guys.
I can help you with some truth from my past to inspire
I'll just interview you. I'll be like, and what snacks prefer?
Any.
Okay.
Chocolate, mostly. Okay.
So like fairies, the Slenderman is otherworldly with motives that are often difficult to grasp, and basically like potentially he can change his appearance, and he lives in the woods or the wild places and kidnaps children. Kidnapping kids is my story ideal.
Okay. Yeah, I'd rephrase that a little.
But I talk a lot about cryptids and weird stuff that likes to kidnap, like changelings and fairies. That's and now true. Slenderman. And
interesting.
I think it's just weird to me. I don't know. It's spooky, and like I want to have kids, and even as not
that is the ultimate fear, right?
That is the worst possible. Like to me, cool ghosts, yeah, they're fine. But the idea that like something could happen to a child is so fucked up to me.
Yeah.
And so I think that as I'm like, ooh, what's the scariest thing I can talk about? I think I'm just drawn to those because
That's a
something happening to
reoccurring theme for
kids is weird. Yeah. And that's on childhood trauma. No, I
Well,
wasn't
I've got a
abducted, but-
great hypnotist for you by the name of Simon. If he's still around. He's probably not.
Of Magician Bob.
It's Magic Bob.
I
Right.
keep doing it, Magic Bob. Okay.
Show the man some respect.
All right. Because of the details given to create this backstory, like we talked about, this amazing storytelling, these great photoshopped pictures, if you look at the original ones, they're really well done.
Mhm.
It's not just like gluing some catalog guy in a suit's face to like this weird picture. Like, it looks really compelling. So Nudson's creations caught like wildfire, and almost immediately there were people online creating their own fan art, cosplaying as Slenderman at conventions.
Wait.
Yeah.
Did he win?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't find that anywhere.
Because that's kind of like...
I mean,
You know.
he won the internet. Like,
He won the internet, but did he win the contest? Because it sounds like he should have.
He should have.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see that anywhere in my research.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
good. He's a winner anyway, to a degree.
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, people are cosplaying, drawing fan art, writing creepypastas. And actually, I thought this started as a creepypasta. I didn't realize that it started with the
Went that
pictures.
further, yeah.
Yeah, because I was familiar with the creepypasta stuff. So because of how famous Slenderman became, it soon lost its ties back to Nudson and kind of took on a life of its own.
That must be so weird for your creation to do that.
Right? And that's when you start to be like, all right, how close to becoming like a tulpa are we?
True.
Like, at what point do we group think this enough that Slenderman really does show up? Alrighty. A lot of the early stories that took place on the Something Awful forums started with the forum user Thoreau Up, which is really clever because it's like Thoreau, the author, Thoreau Up.
What?
Thoreau, the author. That's a name. Thoreau.
Oh, that's the... Okay, all right.
So that's like a historical like author.
Okay.
Henry David Thoreau, I want to say.
Oh,
But
so Thoreau
Thoreau
Up.
Up is like
Okay, I heard
yeah.
that wrong. My bad.
No, you're good. It's very clever that I think it looks better written than
Okay.
said out loud.
Yeah, written I would have laughed. Said
Yeah.
out loud I was a little confused. But
Yeah.
got
It definitely works better in a text format. So this Thoreau Up guy is responsible for creating 16th century German folklore for, and here's me doing German, Der Grossmann, or the original Slenderman.
Interesting. Okay.
And so the little bit of German I do know, gross means like big, like large.
Okay.
So like the large guy is basically,
What it...
so it's
Okay,
like
sure.
Slenderman. Yeah.
Yeah.
Slenderman was first seen in a video series on Something Awful by the user Segar, who uploads to YouTube as Marble Hornets. And Segar created this video series, which has over 80 videos and are said to be the found footage, so you'd hate it, of a fictional film school friend of this uploader named Alex Crayley, who, while shooting his first feature-length project for school, has a run-in with Slenderman, and it just kind of takes on from there.
Oh, okay. All right.
Marble Hornets created the narrative of Slenderman using proxies, so proxies are people who Slenderman influences into doing some of his dark deeds.
Oh, kind of like Minions.
Yeah, exactly. His henchmen,
okay.
his underlings, and basically it's through like mind control. So originally in this series, they're just shown as being like violently insane, but later they are kind of shown to be puppets who are being manipulated by Slenderman.
Okay.
Marble Hornets also introduced the idea that Slenderman could interfere with video and audio tech and like manipulate.
Very much like ghosts or...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that, oh, Slenderman's near, you can tell because all the video's getting wavy or, yeah.
It's definitely not this filter I purchased. It's not this cool editing effect I
Right.
just learned.
And Marble Hornets also created the Slenderman symbol, which is like a circle with an X in it.
It sounds a lot like a lot of symbols I know, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of looks like a target almost. And it became really popular and is considered canon to the Slenderman lore. So like that circle with the X in the middle is like the Slenderman icon at this
Okay.
point.
It's like the bat sigil.
Yeah, except worse. It's not a
Right.
happy bat. Yeah. As of 2013, Marble Hornets had over 250,000 subscribers around the world and had received over 55 million views. which I know in the YouTube world now is not a lot, but I feel like in 2013 that meant a lot more.
I could see that.
Yeah. Like, I know, like, Kylie Jenner or whatever can get, like, 1 billion views overnight.
Right.
But back in 2013, for this...
That was a big deal.
Well, and also this isn't someone's, like, Vivo account or whatever. That's what it's called, right? The music accounts that people have on YouTube. I think they're Vivos.
Oh, I don't know.
Or whatever they're called. But anyway, like, this is just some rando on YouTube. This is, like, you and I making weird film school projects about a cryptid and it blowing up and getting... I would be stoked to get 55 million views.
Speaking of that,
yeah.
It's not 55 million views, but my short Crockpot has had over 20,000 views and is growing. It had over 5,000 views within the first 30 minutes of being uploaded. So
that's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's exciting.
Well. It is. It's
when
exciting.
You're not Kylie Jenner, those numbers really mean something.
To an extent.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
So because of that success, other accounts followed with users telling their own Slenderman stories of their run-ins with him. In 2012, the Slenderman story was adapted into a video game titled Slender: The 8 Pages, and within the first month of release, the game was downloaded over 2 million times. Like the web series, there were several other games which followed its success.
Really? Is our boy who created him for the photo contest, is he getting anything out of this?
Don't think so.
Oh, I want so badly for him to be able to take control of his creation into it. Because as an artist, there's nothing worse than working your ass off on something as a lowly creator who's not in Hollywood or not in these big places where you have these opportunities.
Yeah.
And then if that caught fire and then other people were taking my idea and my work in making merch and video games, that would just suck.
Yeah. I do feel really bad for Eric in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So several independent films about Slenderman have been released or are in development, including Entity and the Slenderman.
Taking these ideas.
Which the Slenderman was actually released free online after reaching a $10,000 Kickstarter goal.
Wow.
Yeah. There are, like I said, there's a bunch of different versions of the story, and as these different versions appear, its origins become even more vague, which has kind of led people to think maybe it is real. And especially because you've got this guy who's like, oh, 16th century Germany had Slenderman sighted. Like, it becomes so ambiguous when you're not like, I can directly trace it back to the forum, because it has now so many different people saying, oh yeah, I saw Slenderman in 1982. And
well, you talk about folklore and how a story just takes on a life of its own and goes. I believe it's Cinderella that is the oldest running fairy tale that dates back to over 50,000 years ago.
Wow.
It was our first, I could be wrong about that number. I'm just going off the top of my head of what I read somewhere. But stories do adapt and they change and they pick up, and it's harder to trace, and new elements get added over time. Yeah. And this seems like just a faster version of that with the internet, with the creation of the internet that keeps us all connected. Yeah. And it's becoming more ambiguous.
And that actually comes up later. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So within 5 months of the original photo being posted on the forum, George Norrie's Coast to Coast AM, a paranormal radio show, begins...
I love it. I love Coast. I never get to listen to it unless I'm like in the middle of a desert in the middle of the night, which only happens twice
I know, but shout out to Coast to Coast. So 5 months after the original photos are posted, he starts getting calls about Slenderman.
Really? Okay.
And 2 years later, an article in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune describes his origins as, quote, difficult to pinpoint.
Which leads you to believe, are these people attention whores or topas?
Eric Knudsen has commented that many people, despite understanding that Slenderman was created on the Something Awful forums, still do entertain the possibility he might be real. And I think that that's on just how convincing of a storyteller Eric Knudsen is.
I think that leads me back to the X-Files, and I want to believe.
Exactly. And when you're, I think it's one thing to tell a story, but the fact that I think it was really clever how he didn't make it look like 2009 cell phone camera, but the fact that he made it a 1980s
start on the lore in my
opinion. To have it be something that's already 20 plus years out of date makes it feel more concrete. Exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about the legends, let's just kind of briefly go over Slenderman's appearance and characteristics. I'm sure almost everyone knows kind of what he looks like. Yeah, he's slender. Exactly. Plot twist, he's a hefty boy. He's the
just like
He's the Hills Dachshund.
He was a chunker.
He was.
I wish I knew the dachshund's name.
I know.
That wasn't in the blurb. Otherwise, I would have found a way to incorporate that into my story.
Yeah, he's very cute, though. All right, so the sheer amount of different versions of Slenderman mean that his description does kind of change with the different versions of the story that are being told. Most often,
much like gray aliens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Most often, he's said to be very tall and thin, kind of like Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. And he seems to have tentacles which can protrude from his body at will to snatch people up.
Wait, what? That part I didn't know. I thought he had like long fingers and long arms and kind of like your soup hands.
He can apparently shoot tentacles out of his, like, armpits and snatch up kids.
Rue has the creepiest hands.
They're not.
They are.
The problem.
Your hands are creepy. She can do this thing where she puts her hand. How would you describe that? What you do?
So my hands are just very flexible and almost like, I guess.
But long, too.
Yeah, I have long fingers. And for me, it's just flattening my hand out all the way. But I guess for most people, it would be like a hyperextending, like if you put your fingers into your other palm and kind of pushed back on them. I have I'm not double jointed, but I have very flexible hands.
She can naturally do that to the point where her hand almost turns into like a soup ladle, and it freaks me out.
I can also put my thumb like back to my wrist, no problem. That freaks out Jessi a lot.
I mean, not as bad as the soup hands, but yes, quit doing it, please.
Yep, soup hands.
Stop soup handing! Stop it. Okay, Slenderman, tentacles, go. Ugh, I don't want to see the soup hands anymore.
All right.
She's like salad fingers, best friend soup fingers or soup hands. You're the sidekick there.
I loved Salad Fingers so much when I was a latchkey kid.
I've never seen it. I've just heard about it through you, and that was enough.
And it's a delight to be compared to one of his sidekicks.
Oh, man.
All
so
right.
Tentacles, I did not know.
Tentacles, yeah. And most of the time, his face is said to be white and lacks all features. So it's just kind of a head-shaped blob.
That is very Men in Black.
Yeah. In almost every story, Slenderman wears a black suit and tie. So he literally is in black.
He is a man in black.
Yes.
Slender man in black.
And he most
formal,
often...
though.
Very formal, yes. Especially because most often he hangs out in the forest.
That's...
which is not where I would wear a suit.
That is not proper attire for the forest, my friend.
Yeah. And... also, he's known to hang out in, like, abandoned locations, so every mall in America is not safe from Slenderman at this point.
Watch out, Metcalf South.
And according to the legends, being in close range of Slenderman causes a so-called slender sickness, which includes rapid onset paranoia, nightmares, and delusions, and nosebleeds.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting.
In the earliest versions of the myth, Slenderman targeted children or young adults. According to some of the stories, his prey would be driven insane to act on his behalf. So this is kind of becoming the proxy like I was talking about. Some stories also made claims that investigating the Slenderman will draw his attention. So I'm screwed, basically.
Oh, watch out, Rue.
I've been investigating all day. It is noteworthy that for as frightening as Slenderman is, it's not often that graphic because most of the stories leave the fate of the victims obscure, which almost makes it scarier because they're just gone.
You just don't know.
Exactly.
Can't possibly know.
Shira Chess, who we talked about earlier, said that the Slenderman could be considered a metaphor for, quote, helplessness, power differentials, and anonymous forces. Media scholar and folklorist Andrew Peck drew parallels between Slenderman and anxieties about the digital age, like the feelings of constant connectedness and unknown third-party observation. So kind of like what you were talking about earlier, how much more quickly things can spread.
Yeah.
Ty Van Horn, a writer for The Elm, suggested that Slenderman represents a modern fear of the unknown. And Troy Wagner, who's the creator of Marble Hornets that we talked about earlier, said that the terror of Slenderman is in its malleability. People can shape it into whatever frightens them the most.
Which I agree. Kind of like it,
yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's, when I watch a horror movie, I like the ones that leave the big bad a little bit more ambiguous. Mm-hmm. Because I think they age better.
Like Jaws.
Yeah, because, you know, as technology changes, Bela Lugosi's not that scary anymore. Because it's like, okay, we see the ketchup, bro. Like, it was really groundbreaking at the time, but the horror is not as present now that we have much better technology, but those things that are
Right.
just mysterious, that kind of you see the dark shadow and then the person reacting to it and the music changes, is always going to be more scary to me.
So much better over
Yeah.
time. You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So that's kind of the story of Slenderman. And now we're going to get really rough.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a swig of water real quick and brace for this because this is rough. Okay.
Yeah, it's rough. All right, so Peyton Leutner was a compassionate fourth grader in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and she saw that her classmate Morgan Geyser was sitting alone at lunch, and so the two girls quickly became friends. She went over and befriended her and was like, hey, I see you're alone, let's hang out. And they would have sleepovers. They liked to do each other's nails. They'd spend their time at school together. They were little girl friends.
Oh, and how old are they at this point?
Fourth grade.
Fourth grade. What is
So
fourth
like
grade?
9.
9, okay.
9, 10 probably.
Gotcha.
Morgan gave Peyton the nickname Bella and said that she was her only friend for a long time.
Aww.
They were just sweet little gal pals. 2 years later, Morgan found a new best friend, which I think is the most devastating thing that can happen in a childhood friendship.
Definitely in preteen years.
Yeah,
that happens and it's devastating.
When you get demoted from best friend to just one of my friends, it's gut-wrenching.
It takes me back to MySpace and seeing what number of friend you were on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this new best friend, Anissa Wire,
okay,
and Peyton said that once they became best friends, everything just went downhill. Morgan and Anissa quickly became obsessed with Slenderman, which by this point had a few years to gain traction.
And how old are they now?
They are 12, or they're like 11, 12.
That's pretty early to be into a creepypasta, right?
Not for me.
Okay.
I think I read my first Stephen King book when I was like 9.
Wow.
But that's just me.
I scared really easily, and I still do, so oh, yes, I know. Thank you. So I stayed away from all that. Like, Goosebumps would scare me like I was 15 and I'd be scared by Goosebumps.
It scared the hell out of me, and I loved it. It was like cocaine. I was like, more.
Do you do a lot of cocaine, Rue?
at 8 years old, yeah. No, but it was just like I very quickly became obsessed with horror. And I think that's because, like, as a baby, my mom would play like Resident Evil, and there was just always talk of spooky stuff and ghosties, and yeah.
Oh, I did not have that.
I didn't have a choice but to become obsessed with all things paranormal and terrifying. All right, so they were Slenderman fans, even though they were young. And Peyton remembers that she was not a big fan of this obsession because it scared her. So she would be the Jessi
in this situation. Jessi in the story.
Yeah, but she went along with it because she thought it was real and she wanted to be a good friend to Morgan. There was probably some peer pressure that she already felt like she was getting cast out. Now she doesn't want to be the baby who doesn't like Slenderman on top of it.
That would have totally been me.
Yeah.
At her age.
So Morgan had a sleepover with the other two girls on May 30th, 2014. So we're 5 years after Slenderman first appeared on the forum.
So it's had a while.
Yeah. So it's huge now. And so Morgan is celebrating her 12th birthday with this sleepover.
Okay.
In a 2015-2020 interview, Peyton's mom, Stacy, hi, Kat.
He's
doing great ASMR for us right now.
He's talking into the mic.
Yeah.
I just want to, we'll just let him do his thing for a second. I want to see how it turns out. Oh, he's very into the podcast.
He's very, very into the podcast.
He's watching you and he's deliberately, he purred and spoke all in that mic, didn't he? You can watch from here, buddy. He's obsessed with your face. He keeps just watching you.
That's awesome. All right. In a 2015-2020 interview, Peyton's mom, Stacy, said, quote, "It was a Friday night and she was so excited." She's talking about her daughter, Peyton.
Aww.
The three girls spent the evening roller skating, eating pizza and cake, and playing with their American Girl dolls.
Oh, it sounds like, everybody at 12.
Yeah. That's the best 12th birthday you could have.
Who could afford American Girl dolls?
Literally. I always wanted, I would get the catalog and just be like, if only. I liked the books, though.
Got one, but I was probably older than 12 when I got one. I think I was like 13, 12, or maybe I was 12 or 13. I finally got one but I only got one.
Yeah.
I had friends that had every.
Right? And the one that looked like them, because you can customize. Yeah.
That's the one I got. I got the one that looked like me, and I had to really beg for it for years before I could get it. He's cool. Really, you can't see him, but he's sitting right off camera here, just staring at you.
Oh, okay. That's not creepy at all. Okay. Peyton said that looking back, the sleepover was a little different from all their other sleepovers because Morgan didn't want to stay up all night. And remember, this is Morgan's birthday, too. So you'd think she would be like, let's stay up all night, as 12-year-old little girls like to do.
Sucking it in, just absorbing it all.
So the next morning, the girls went to the park nearby. Yeah, and it's going to get
I know it's coming. I know it's coming.
At the park, the girls went into one of the bathrooms, so like the public, like concrete shelter at the park, where it's believed that Peyton was physically attacked by Anissa. Despite the attack, which almost knocked her out, Peyton stayed with her friends, and Anissa and Morgan then led her to the woods nearby.
How did they, when you say they attacked her?
Yeah, like tried to beat her up and hold her down and stuff. And again, I have to just ascribe this to peer pressure of like, I don't know why they're fighting with me, but I don't want to be a narc and be like, I'm going home, I'm telling my mom. So you keep going with it, even though it's not good and you hate it. I mean, I was an awkward little kid. I'll be the first to admit that. And I got myself into a lot of those kind of situations of like, I just want them to like me. I just want to be cool. If I just go along with it. And I mean, nothing this bad ever, but just stuff that didn't feel quite right. That I don't like this, or pretending you like something that you don't even care about.
Right.
All right. Once they're in the woods, Morgan stabs Peyton with a kitchen knife 19 times while Anissa stood watch nearby. According to Brian Huckstorf, a doctor at the Waukesha Memorial Hospital, Peyton was stabbed on, quote, her chest and abdomen and arm and leg. She had 5 wounds on her arm, 7 on her leg, and the rest were scattered throughout her torso, including her liver, pancreas, and stomach. One of the wounds in her torso missed her heart by 1 millimeter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Morgan and Anissa quickly ran away from the scene, leaving Peyton for dead.
Poor girl.
Yeah, completely. So this guy, Greg Steinberg, is out for a bike ride that morning near the woods, and he found Peyton lying face down in the grass at the edge of the forest with one of her sandals 3 feet away and crawling, because she lost her sandal while she was crawling out of the woods, and she was trying to find help.
Oh.
She said, "Can you help me, please? I've been stabbed multiple times."
Wow.
So he called 911 and sat with her while they waited for emergency responders to arrive. And you can find that 911 call super easily on YouTube and stuff. After identifying Peyton, police went to the Lutner house to inform her parents of what had happened. Stacy, her mom, said that her first thought at seeing the uniformed officer at their door was, quote, something has happened to somebody that I love. She and Joe, who's Peyton's father, were rushed to the hospital. Or they rushed on their own, I suppose.
Yeah.
WISN News reported that Peyton was in intensive care for weeks and came through with 25 resulting scars. Both girls who committed the crime were quickly located and detained. Morgan said, quote, I have wanted to hurt people before, but they're not nice to me, so they deserve it. And she said that during a interrogation with a detective when she admitted that they'd planned to kill Peyton. During Anissa's interrogation, she told police about creepypasta and that's somewhere that people can create and write their own stories, and that in these stories they had learned about a man named Slenderman. Anissa indicated that Slenderman is the leader of the creepypasta, which I did not know.
It's new to me.
Yep. And that he's at the top of the triangle, which I'm wondering if he is the top of the pyramid of power of creepypasta. It all comes back.
Pyramid of power. He's the tip top. Yeah.
Creepy pyramid. Just below Slenderman is the killer, and below the killer is the proxy. So what Anissa is talking about here is that Slenderman is the boss, basically, and then people who kill for him are his henchmen, and the people he can manipulate as proxies are the bottom of
lower level.
Yeah,
right. It's like any multi-marketing campaign or any sort of pyramid of power system, as we've
Slenderman skincare.
Oh, hey, can we back off?
Your cat is so upsetting to me. And I love cats. It's just the fact that I just keep getting his face in the webcam.
He's not my cat. This is Christy's cat that's upsetting you. And he's very much into you.
Your cat that lives at your house. I'm sorry. I know he's not your blood.
He is right here, and he is staring directly at you the entire time.
I just want to tell this horrible story. Okay.
He's really into it. Maybe he's a proxy.
Oh no, Jessi, run. Anissa stated that in order to become a proxy, you needed to kill somebody, and this would show your dedication to Slenderman. And so that's what they were trying to do by essentially sacrificing their friend, was to get in Slenderman's good graces to be within his pyramid of power.
I'm telling you, multi-level marketing campaigns, pyramid of powers are just sort of bad news.
They're all bad. Yeah. Anissa told police that many people do not believe Slenderman is real, and she stated that she wanted to, quote, prove the skeptics wrong. She indicated that she'd been reading the website since the October of the year before, and that Morgan had been the one to introduce her to it. So Morgan told Anissa, apparently, quote, we should be proxies of Slender. And Anissa said basically like, okay, how do we do that?
And she's like, oh, we gotta kill someone.
Yeah, she said, we have to kill Peyton to prove ourselves worthy to the Slender.
What makes you go along with that?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, we'll find out later, actually.
Okay.
And Anissa stated that, quote, she felt she had to physically kill someone. So she was taking this really seriously. The girls made the plan and indicated to the police that they learned that Slenderman lived in a mansion in the Nicolet National Park, which they discovered was in Wisconsin. How convenient.
That's very convenient.
And I'm wondering if that's a regional version, because out of all the places for Slenderman to live, seems a little convenient.
That's pretty specific.
Yeah, and so their plan was that they were going to kill Peyton and then walk to Slenderman's mansion and become a proxy. During police interviews with the would-be proxy murderers, more information about the timeline came out. So remember I said they were having a sleepover and it was all fun and games. They went roller skating. So we kind of get a better picture of what actually went down. Mm-hmm. Anissa told police that on May 30th, 2014, after school, she and Morgan went to her house where they packed backpacks full of clothes, granola bars, water bottles, and a picture of her mother and father and siblings because she didn't want to forget what her family looked like when they lived in the mansion.
Wow.
Morgan's dad picked up Peyton and the three girls went to Skateland, which is the roller skating rink that they all celebrated at.
Yeah.
They returned at 9:30 p.m. Anissa said that they went to sleep in Morgan's room and that they had planned to kill Peyton while she was sleeping at about 2 a.m. This plan included putting duct tape over her mouth and stabbing her in the neck and then putting the covers over her to make it look like she was sleeping and run away into the woods.
Oh, on her birthday.
Well, it's Morgan's birthday, not Peyton's.
Oh, okay. All right.
And apparently this plan changed because they wanted to go roller skating instead, which is such a 12-year-old, like, oh, we'll do that later. I want to go roller skating.
Yeah, I'd rather go roller skating because that's an option.
Right, yeah, than literally try and murder somebody.
Then carry out the murderous plan, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah. On the morning of May 31st, so the next day, they decided that they would kill Peyton in the park bathroom. Anissa noted that the floor had a drain for the blood to go down. So they really, for 12-year-old kids, are thinking this through.
Kind of thought it through, yeah.
Anissa said that when Morgan's mom said they could go to the park and play, Morgan grabbed a knife from the house. Peyton was walking in front of them, because, 3 people on a sidewalk doesn't work, and Morgan lifted up the side of her jacket and displayed the knife tucked into her waistband to Anissa. So literally right behind her, they're conspiring. Anissa said that she gave Morgan a look with wide eyes and said, I thought, dear God, this was really happening. So they eventually end up in the bathroom, like I said, quote, where Anissa was going to do the stabbing because she knew all the weak spots. And once in the bathroom, Morgan handed Anissa the knife, and Anissa claimed that Morgan grabbed a hold of Peyton's arms in a stall and almost restrained her. Anissa said that she needed to talk to Morgan, and she told her she couldn't do it. She didn't have the guts.
So she was close to backing out.
Yep. Anissa gave Morgan the knife and apparently kind of had a little bit of a nervous breakdown. A little while later, Anissa suggested they go for a walk, and they began to walk outside in the park. And at this point, go home.
Right.
They're
and like, take the girl who's about to get stabbed with you.
Well, that's what I mean. Any of them. Go home. If you're feeling weird, if your friend pulls a knife on you.
Go home. If your friend tries to beat you up in the bathroom, go home.
Yeah. You don't owe coolness to anybody.
Nope. Always listen to your gut. Always.
Yeah. All right. So they're walking in the park, and at that point, Anissa points the woods out to Morgan and says that they should kill Peyton there. Anissa says that they're going to go play hide and seek, so that they could distract Peyton and kill her, get her to hide, basically.
Gotcha.
And be a sitting duck. So Morgan was the first seeker. Peyton and Anissa began to hide. Anissa told Peyton where to hide, and Peyton began to kneel down. Anissa told Peyton to lie face down in the dirt, and Peyton refused because she didn't want to do that, because obviously.
Right. Yeah, face in the dirt, yeah.
So Anissa pushed her down and sat on Peyton, who complained she couldn't breathe and began to scream.
Aww.
Anissa thought if she sat on Peyton and restrained her, Morgan could stab her more easily, but she was worried that the screaming would attract attention, so she got off.
Imagine, oh my God, like the trauma this girl would have in forming friendships after this.
Yep. Anissa told Morgan that she was too squeamish, and so Morgan was going to have to do this. She stated that once Morgan got the knife back, she told her, quote, "I'm not going to go until you tell me to." So Morgan still wanted Anissa to be kind of responsible in this.
Right.
Morgan then went to Peyton and tackled her, and then started stabbing her. Peyton was screaming. Morgan said she was counting in her head and believed she stabbed Peyton 17 times. Anissa says that Peyton screamed, "I hate you, I trusted you," as she was being stabbed.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
I know.
I trusted you. Et tu, Brute?
Yeah. Peyton got up and stumbled toward the street. Anissa didn't want anyone to see her, and so she grabbed a hold of her arm and led her away from the street. Peyton then fell down and said she couldn't breathe, see, or walk. Anissa told Peyton to lay down and be quiet so that she would lose blood more slowly so that she would be alive after they went and got help. So they say they're going to go get help, and they never have any intentions of going to get help.
Of course not.
It was their hope that Peyton would die and they would see Slenderman and know that he exists. So they left the forest and they went to Walmart.
Wow.
And there's actually security camera footage of them in Walmart, which you can see online. So they've just stabbed their friend, and now they're just these two little vagabond kids in Walmart.
Are they covered in blood? I would assume they'd have to be.
It's hard to see
because
it's grainy, but I'm sure that at least Morgan would be.
I mean, like, two preteen girls coming covered in blood to Walmart.
Yeah.
You would think that would raise an eyebrow somewhere.
Well, it is Walmart. Okay. Anissa talked about the planning stages and said that every now and then she and Morgan would whisper about the plan to kill Peyton when they were on the bus. She stated that they talked about living in the woods and what they would need to do to defeat animals.
Wow.
Which is just, I mean, God, just little kids. They're just little kids. They whispered as they talked because they didn't want people to hear them because they knew they'd go to prison if anyone ever found out. So they used code words, and they said that cracker meant knife or killing, and camping trip meant the national park.
Okay.
When asked if she knew what it meant to kill someone, Anissa said, "I believe it's ending a life, and I regret it. The bad part of me wanted her to die. The good part of me wanted her to live." So actually, they saw a police officer had come to the scene, and they were hiding in the woods. So I guess they leave Walmart, go back to the woods to try and find this mansion that Slenderman lives in.
And they see the police officer there.
And they see the police officers, and they hide from him, I guess. Okay. At one point, Morgan stated she was sorry. She put the knife back into her bag and wiped it off on her jacket. She told the detective, quote, "It was weird that I didn't feel remorse."
Wow.
Asked why they...
She is cold.
Well, we find out later that she's mentally ill.
Well, she's schizophrenic, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. But
and so I think a lot of it has to do with the depersonalization that can occur during bouts of mania and that kind of stuff. And also, schizophrenia aside, the trauma, the shock. I'm sure you don't realize you've actually really done that and what that means for a long time.
Right. Well, they say, okay, I watched an interview about this a long time ago, and it was the girl who was schizophrenic. Which one is that again?
Morgan.
It was Morgan's parents being interviewed, and her father had schizophrenia, and he was talking about the battle with that and how they had no idea she had it. She was completely undiagnosed, but he had it, and he tells this thing where he's like, you know, the devil's not in the back seat of your car, but the devil is in the back seat of your car. You're seeing it, and he goes, if I would have known, I would have had a chance to talk to her and tell her about how it's not. He goes, the only thing that saved me is the fact that I was diagnosed and I know that stuff is not real.
Yep.
And then he goes on, her mom went on to say that I'm sorry, what's her name again? Morgan?
Yeah.
Was heartbroken because she ends up in a mental facility, right? and she's
You're
heartbroken.
just telling my
because
story at this point.
I'm sorry, she didn't understand why the other girls aren't her friends anymore.
Yeah.
Which is just, I mean, it's terrible all the way around.
Yeah, I'm going to talk some more about her family in a little bit.
Sorry.
No,
I don't
you're
mean
fine.
to tell your whole story. I just,
You're
thinking
okay.
about that,
Yeah.
it's just tragic.
Absolutely. Okay, so when asked why they did this, Morgan stated that Anissa had told her that they had to, or else he would kill our family. When asked who he was, Morgan said she did not know. She stated that the stabbing, quote, seemed necessary.
Wow.
So when Morgan was asked what they were trying to do, why they took Peyton out there, she said, quote, I may as well just say it, killer.
Wow. So she just comes straight forward with it.
As for Slenderman, Morgan said she'd never met him, but he watches her and he can read your mind and can teleport. He has tentacles on him and they are sharp. She sees him in her dreams when no one else does, and you start to get slender sickness because of slender radiation.
Oh, I wonder if she was actually having schizophrenic hallucinations.
Yeah, absolutely. And so she said that he's not on the computer because he doesn't like technology. And when asked if she knew what she did was wrong, she said it was, quote, probably wrong. She asked if it was illegal to stab someone in self-defense. Sometimes, the detective stated. He asked Morgan if this is what happened, and she said no.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's being honest about it.
She is. She is. When arrested, when they arrested the girls, police found a large kitchen knife in one of Morgan's mother's old purses sitting between the girls. Morgan said she put the knife back into it after wiping it off on her jacket. Anissa's father, William, did indicate that he was missing a 2.5-inch knife from his house as well. And so all of the story that I've just been telling, kind of this timeline portion, comes from a document from the state of Wisconsin's criminal complaint accusations. Wow. Just to kind of trace back to where that is.
Okay.
In December 2017, Anissa received the maximum 25 years in a mental health facility after pleading guilty to being an accomplice to a second-degree intentional homicide. And in February of 2018, Morgan received 40 years in a mental hospital after pleading guilty. And so this quote comes from Judge Michael Boren, and it's in an article with the New York Times. He said, quote, it is a long time, but this is an issue of community protection. There is an issue to be sure there's no recidivism. This is an issue to ensure that Miss Geyser doesn't have a revolving door situation where she ends up being in the community, then things fall apart and she comes back.
Wow.
So, I mean, we talk a lot about how reoffending happens.
Right.
And being somewhere that she's able to stay safe and that other people are safe as well. I mean, it's important.
Right.
It's certainly not an ideal situation at all. I mean, through and through, it's just heartbreaking. It was revealed in court, like you said, that Morgan's father, Matthew, has schizophrenia as well. And when he was a teenager, he was hospitalized at least 4 times to treat it. So like you said, he was really armed with a lot more coping skills and years of, here's what we're going to do, here's how you deal with it. This is what it really means when you see the devil in the backseat kind of thing. He said, her mom, Angie, said, when they told us what had happened and that she had done it because she believed Slenderman is real, that's where my mind went, is that she must be sick.
Yeah.
The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported a court testimony where it was said that Matthew Geyser was on disability due to his mental illness. The newspaper reported that Matthew's ex-wife, Amy, had to dispute tabloid accusations that he was a, quote, devil worshiper and called him a kind soul.
That's
and so
terrible.
I've kind of heard some of this stuff that maybe Matthew wasn't the most up-and-up guy, and I think a lot of it's hearsay malarkey, faux conservative Christian BS.
Gotcha.
And that's because some of his behavior is probably mental health related, and some of it's just who he is as a person. He has a fondness for horror movies. He loves Stephen King books.
That doesn't make you a bad person.
Exactly. He was apparently proud of Morgan's interest in creepy stuff, and on an Instagram account named Deadboy420, posted a picture of a drawing of Slenderman with the caption, only Mogo, which I guess is what they called Morgan, draws Slenderman in crayon on a napkin when we're out to dinner. That account has since been deleted. But as a family, they liked spooky stuff.
Okay, yeah.
In a 2014 article, Daily Mail reported that email addresses linked to Matt's name and address on public record included the words, "I love evil," or variously, "I love evil 666," and he'd posted a ticket for a Shadows Fall concert, which I guess that group is said to be scary and satanic and bad or whatever.
Okay.
But I think this is all just holdovers from like the satanic panic of the 70s. It's like, oh, he said, "I love evil," so clearly that's why his daughter wants to stab someone. Like, liking spooky stuff, macabre stuff, even dabbling in Satanism does not automatically make you a bad person.
I do think there can be what's the word?
Desensitization.
Desensitization for young kids who are exposed to gory movies and stuff like that. But other than that, you know, unless he's proactively saying, "Oh yeah, you should stab somebody," that'd be sick. You know?
Well, and that's my thing, is that it's the video games thing. Playing Call of Duty doesn't mean you're going to grab an assault rifle.
Right.
And listening to music that has dark themes in it does not mean that that's something you want to perpetuate. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
of course there are certain people that are drawn to that because they are just, that's an outlet, or, you know.
But I think it's just this really damaging stereotype that we have that's, oh, you're into this stuff, you must be a certain way, which is something that, I mean, I've faced. Look at the podcast we have. Like, I've definitely had people be like, "Oh, I think you're into weird, dark, horrible stuff. I'm, you know, I don't want to associate with Satanism." And I'm like, cool, I'm not a Satanist. I just like ghosts. But it kind of all gets lumped in together.
Right.
That I think for those people who are already looking for that, someone who likes to draw Slenderman is automatically going to be someone who stabs her friend. When I know that there were a million kids on that creepypasta who didn't stab anyone.
Probably drew Slenderman.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly. And also Daily Mail alleged that Angie, who is Morgan's mom, had also posted a number of pictures of skulls and a church with a graveyard at night on her Instagram. But
oh, wow. You can find that on either of our Facebooks. Being like, "Hey, look at this creepy old church."
Exactly. Okay. And like, so they just liked that stuff. And neither of the parents have any criminal history in the state of Wisconsin. Like, it's not an automatic, and I think it's damaging, and it's a cop-out to say it is.
I agree.
Okay. So Matt has a different Instagram page now, and he's posted positive comments about his daughter, writing, "Huge happy smile. She's my all-time favorite daughter." Both of the parents have accounts which are private. And yeah, like we said, having an interest in the macabre is not synonymous with having ideations of homicide.
Agreed.
You're allowed to like weird shit.
Yes.
Stacy, Peyton's mom, has acknowledged that for a long time she was mad at Morgan's parents. She now says, quote, "But I'm not angry anymore because I recognize that they're going through their own hell." Morgan continues to appeal her case, and at this point it seems that it will be going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Wow.
As of last year, Peyton has started sharing her own story on interviews.
Really? What does she say?
She mostly just kind of talks about the events, and but most of them are available. I think it's like a 2020 special, and they're on the internet. So that is the story of Slenderman and the violent crimes that followed.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know who it's terrible because, one, you've got the schizophrenia aspect. Mm-hmm. Two, you've got the girl just trying to conform. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the girl who goes along with it no matter how much her gut is telling her not to. And
Yep. Well, and it's children.
Right.
I mean, that's, to me, even if they were 17, it would be so different to me. But it's the fact that they're 12 years old.
Girls, go play Sims.
Yeah, kill your Sims if you gotta kill somebody.
Kill your Sims if you gotta kill something. Yeah.
Slenderman will still take that offering. If you take the ladder out of the pool, he'll be like, "Oh, cool."
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's
should know. She researched Sims. So if you're thinking of killing someone to sacrifice to Slenderman, go get Sims, kill some Sims.
There you go.
Talk to Slenderman. It's all good.
It's all good. I have first-hand knowledge. No, I'm playing.
No animals, no people.
No animals, no people,
Sims.
just Sims. Yep. And on that note, that's our super long episode of Supposedly.
Our super supposedly.
So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at supposedlypod.
We'd love to hear if you have any creepy stories, any paranormal events that have happened to you, or if you have anything you want us to cover that you'd like to hear about, hit us up at supposedlypod@gmail.com.
And join us next time on Supposedly.